Hi, my name is Rawan. I'm a literature student at the Islamic University of Gaza, and I'm also a member of several youth teams here in Gaza. One of them is We Are Not Numbers. These teams basically aims to develop the potential of Palestinians, young Palestinians, and raise the awareness. And this is a short introduction about me. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Salma Mustafa. I'm 26 years old. Originally, I am from Kana of Galil, which is in North Palestine. And currently, I'm living in Haifa city. I have a bachelor degree in English literature and theater, and now I'm preparing for my MA degree in drama therapy. I'm a member of the We Are Not Numbers organization, and I'm a cat mom, so yeah.
I would like to speak a little bit about what is We Are Not Number. Basically, We Are Numbers. It's aims to develop the communication skills of young Palestinians who live under occupation here in Gaza. This organization wants to develop the potential of Palestinians so we can talk about our stories and speak about them by our own voice. Usually, some of us hear about Gaza's stories, or let's say in general, Palestinian story by some, let's say, foreigners. So this is our aim, to let people know our story by our voices. Some some of our story that has been written by our writers. Some of it were also not written by our writers, but basically that we are trying to make the Palestinian voice raised up in the world. So one of our aims is actually to let the world know that there is other stories beside the occupation and these story that always we try to hear about here outside of Gaza. We are trying to say that there is stories beside the occupation, that our problems still the same problems that the other world are dealing with. Basically try to humanize the Palestinian stories.
I can say that my experience with the We Are Not Numbers is actually different from Rawan's, because I live in the occupied territories, and I cannot go to the office in Gaza. I cannot be physically presented with the group. The Zoom actually opened this platform for all of us Palestinians to be a part of We Are Not Numbers, which is new for this year. We usually are from Gaza, the West Bank, the occupied territories, and also from all over the world, which is amazing. As a Palestinians, we have this shared platform for all of us to learn about the Palestinian stories, to share our experiences with each other. And this was the first opportunity for me to ever engage with the Palestinians from Gaza, because
Yeah, me too.
yeah, exactly. And
I
we're
only know
so
Salma.
surprised.
Yeah,
Most of us were surprised to know about each other, because we have a lot of questions, we have a lot of things we want to know, because we only hear about each other from by the news and by fiction. So this virtual, and I know it's limited, but this virtual relationship is actually really meaningful, and it emotional somehow. So yeah.
yeah, I totally agree. What I like about number is we are not number, that she tries to give the voice to unvoiced people.
Mhm.
So it's like what I like that the most, that sometimes I wrote my own stories by my own voice. So it's not sometimes there is not there is not another voice in my story. So it's all narrated by me. Sometimes like we have some national writers who look up to our drafts and see what things that is good. Because like as you know, we are not native writers, so sometimes we got the help from the native speakers to look to our stories and tell us what is good and not what is bad. So I like that it's my own story guided by me only, that some other writers who is amazing is going to say if this suitable or not. So this is I don't think there is something like that in another organization, but this is what, or for me, what makes We Are Not Numbered special.
Rawan, I was wondering if you would like to say something about your experience with COVID-19 vaccines being rolled out in Palestine.
You know what? A vaccine, like, it's a new thing here in Gaza. Some people are afraid of it. Some people like are wondering and have some question about it. But I think mostly I can understand why people like still like can kind of have a question about it, because even COVID was like a myth for us. Even when people like all the Gaza, one of the latest countries that have COVID in it. So we hear that people out of sight of Gaza, because Gaza here are in lockdown. So we hear sometimes out of Gaza when the COVID started, we hear like there is some kind of disease outside, but like we cannot normalize it because we didn't have it yet. But at potentially that we have COVID here in Gaza. But when the vaccine, like the problem that we have vaccine here in Gaza, but we have it like because of donation, and most of donation comes from the Gulf cities. And yeah, there is some of it like came from China and some other cities, but mostly because mostly organizations try to help the world, the third world cities, and um, they give priority to the people that must have it. For example, the medical staff and people have chronic diseases like diabetes. So they try to give the priority to the people. I cannot have it yet. I don't know someone. I don't know from my relative or my friend someone who like had the vaccine, but I think it's still like we didn't hear about it a lot. There's still like there is some questions, and there is not definitely there is like a few people. There is only 2,000 people had it here in Gaza, but I don't think this is a huge number considering the Gazan citizens.
Great, Steve, thank you for that. But over here, we read about Israelis receiving the vaccine.
The vaccine here was actually was very successful, which is one of the many tools that Israel used to tell the world that she is very successful in now in spreading tools, in fighting the virus, and as being like one kind of state for all of its citizens that received the vaccine, which is now more than half of the people in Israel have received the vaccine. If we want to talk about the Palestinian workers from the West Bank, the Israeli government allowed only the working Palestinians that will enter the occupied territories to take the vaccine, somehow to prevent from spreading the virus into the occupied territories, because right now Israel is focusing on going back to the normal life and fighting the virus internationally, so it can build this very healthy reputation of itself around the world. I think the COVID-19 experience actually changed everything around here, especially about the relationship that is going on between the Palestinians that is living in the occupied territories and the Israeli government. Sometimes I ask myself, how did that happen, and what kind of steps that actually occurred in order for this relationship to become the way that it is now, which is really bizarre. I would actually call it a bizarre relationship. I think the pandemic somehow normalized the relationship between the Palestinian people living in the occupied territories and the Israeli government. Israel succeeded somehow in returning to the mind of the Palestinians by regulating their lives as citizens of the state, which is something that this is the first time that we actually face some such things. Now people all over the occupied territories wait for speeches from the prime minister, which is Benjamin Netanyahu. We wait for the speeches to get updates, to understand the circumstances of the COVID-19 that we're going to face. it's more likely that we're feeling involved somehow in the whole pandemic as a part of the Israeli regime and as a part of the Israeli government, which is also really bizarre. Another thing that I would like to talk about is how they normalized also the idea of having Arab doctors and nurses and people who work in the medical system, because I know, for example, that the former head of the Mossad, Avraham Halevi, he actually spoke about the health system in Israel, which he calls it that it today depends on the Arabs who work in it, which is something that never happened before. And I remember him saying that if thousands of Arab doctors, nurses, and other health workers sat at home, the health device would totally collapse and there would be no possibility of saving it. A lot of similar statements were said by the IDF, the occupation army. Many of them spoke in Arabic, inviting Arabs and Palestinians from all over the occupied territories, asking them as citizens to join them in fighting the COVID-19. So they actually took advantage of this pandemic to invite people to be more to be a part of the Israel occupation in the occupied territories, which is something that I don't think that it can be normalized in any way possible, whether it's a pandemic or not. But today, toward the end of the crisis, which now about 5 million citizens in Israel have taken the first vaccine, the Palestinians have returned to the place that the Israel state has created for them since the 1948, which is according to a recent law that was set in the Israeli parliament. We are a citizen of type B, which is not the elite citizen of the state. And now, after the doctors and the nurses and the all staff of the medical organization and system did their work, they are now back at being this type B kind of citizens. And I think that this is much evident on the budget that the Israeli government gave toward the local authorities of the Palestinian villages and cities. After the damage that was caused by the outbreak of the virus, those cities and villages were given less than the minimum that the society needs in order to overcome the crisis, which is also goes under those labels of us being the type B of the state. And I think also, in addition to that, the silence of the police and Israeli army that is about the markedly high frequency of homicides and violence in the Palestinian society in the light of the outbreak of the virus. That is something that is really evident in the lives that we are living today. There's about more than 135 people have died since the start of this year because of violence and homicide that is going in the Palestinian community, without the little bit of caring or the little bit of taking responsibility of the Israeli police. They are only pointing fingers and they are only accusing us of being irresponsible and of being unable to deal with such violence and homicides without them taking any without taking any responsibility or taking any care about the matter. And this is something that actually proves that after we have done our part in the pandemic, we just went back to us being only Palestinian that they don't want in their lands, in our land, of course.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Rawan what it's like in Gaza about the lockdown. I imagine it stops people working. They don't have an income. I imagine there's less food, and the food becomes more expensive. And what about hospitals? I'd imagine like operations are stopped, and who gets the vaccine when it does come in?
The saddest thing that they open the city, even though we are not ready for it. But people are suffering from. People are suffering from poor. they have to have some salary. So they can't open the city, even though we are not ready to open it.
Although that the vaccine was allowed to all of the Israeli citizens in the occupied territories, the Palestinian prisoners are not allowed to take the vaccine. They were also neglected. They were also prevented from family visits and lawyer visits through through this whole year of the pandemic. With the start of the virus spreading in Bethlehem at the beginning of the pandemic, Israel gradually announced the cancellation of family visits and lawyer meetings with the prisoners. Lawyer meetings with the prisoners were banned, and the mass trials were also postponed, as I remember seeing in the news. Until now, we don't have any source from inside of the prisons about the number of prisoners who got the virus or who still has the virus. We don't know. We only have like one source, that is the Israeli prison service, which is something that I don't think that we all can take as serious as it should be. They ignored the virus, and they ignored the fact that the prisoners actually got the virus from the jailers and the detectives that they go outside the prison and go back into the prison. Although they prevented family visits, that didn't stop the virus from going into the prisons and affecting all the Palestinian prisoners.
Usually when they report, like, you know, about COVID in Israel, it's like how well ahead of like the rest of the world Israel is, but they almost never mention the fact that, you know, that they're ignoring more than 4 million Palestinians right in their doorstep. And then there's another petition, actually, yeah, that Marks have been sending around medical aid for Palestinians about, like, protesting to our government, you know, to put pressure on the Israelis to, like, share the vaccine, like, fairly and you know, on humanitarian grounds. So I'll be posting them shortly, probably in the next few minutes. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Okay, we've got a question here. Do the youth of Palestine favour the one state or the two state, what people are calling the one state or the two state solution, unquote, to the Palestine situation?
Okay, I will answer this question, but I don't. Okay, I don't want to speak of, like, of behalf of my, let's say, my Palestinians, but I don't think this is okay. Maybe some people agree this they want one city solution. Some want two city solution, but I don't think that I can speak of all the Palestinians. Maybe I have some opinions of mine, but I don't think this is fair to say, like, I want 1, 2, 3 and ignore what they want. So I don't think this is, like, a fair question, because some people had suffered, like, I think that I'm a privileged person. I have this equality, I can speak to you. Some people cannot speak to you because they have their own reasons. But I don't think that me as Rawan, as a privileged person, even though I'm not that privileged according to the world, I can speak on the behalf of the other Palestinians. So I don't think that if I give a fair answer for this question, that I'm being fair to myself or even fair to my fellow Palestinians. So I don't think how I should answer this question. I don't think there is a way. Even, let's say, like, gather us together, all of us, then we will have, like, you will have a fair answer for this question. But I don't think that I can speak of someone had suffered from a lot of pain. He had lost almost all of their members of family. Like, there is there is one story that I know. I was 8 years old when the first war here in Gaza started. One of the workers that works with my dad has lost all his family. Every time that I have to go to the office to my dad, I have to see all these pictures of his family, even though I didn't know them. All of us felt connected, even though they are not part of my family. They are, even though I'm from Majid. my parents they have in 1949 have to move from Mashdal and go to Gaza. These people who has these picture of these people has hung up in my dad office. I don't know them. My dad didn't have like why he should hang up these picture even though we didn't know them, because we felt connected. Even though my dad has a factory, in the first world we this factory get bombed. My dad felt like, I don't care about this factory. One of my coworkers, his family got lost. All of them died. My dad felt that the loss of money is nothing according to the human beings. So how can I answer this question?
Okay. Did you want to say anything about that, Salma?
I would rather not, because I think this is a very confusing and complicated question for me, because I have no idea. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
We've got a question in the chat, and it goes back to the elections, I'm afraid. You're not going to escape this one. Agnes is asking, let me see, where is this? Agnes is asking, do young Palestinians, of which you two are representatives, believe that the May and June elections will bring about good, or I'm assuming they bring change for you anyway?
Okay, I have like I'm 21 right now. There is okay. The last time we had election here in Gaza, even in the West Bank, it was 1970, 2000, 2007, and there is a gap. Like there is a lot of gap. We don't know. There is a lot of things that we could change because there is a lot of time has passed. Even I have friends who didn't like elect and didn't go and participate in the elections. So I was like, my reaction to them like was, you have to participate even though you are not going to select one party or one of the parties. You have to get organized and go and put your name in, even though you are not going to, as I said, to select one of them. Because I don't think like some people here in Gaza, they do not think that participating in the election is going to bring a change. But I would like to think, yeah, it's going to bring a change. Even though sometimes it's kind of hard to believe, even though like there is 10 years had passed. But I think when my friends, as I said, when my friends say I will not go and do the election part, I would say to them like, no, you have to go. Even though you are not going to select one of the parties, you have to put your name in. That's mean you wanna change, but you do not believe of one of these parties. So I think we have to wait until May and June like pass, then see if this is going to bring a change or not. But I'm going to speak right now of behalf of the people. I think a lot of people are confused. A lot of people are not believing the current situation. They are not like, they are hoping, of course, for change, but I don't think they are like, they are rooting for it. But there is some kind of like, there is some part of their hearts are not believing that this is the change. That's it. At least here in Gaza. But do you wanna why what you know what the saddest part about that some people here in Gaza, yes, I'm here in Gaza, I can elect, I can go and participate in the elections, but some of people here outside of Gaza, even Salma, this is a sad story, but okay, Salma cannot participate in the elections because she is not a Palestinian citizen. Some people outside of Gaza are not participating in the election, even though they are Palestinians, but he cannot participate in the election. I think Salma gonna go wild while talking about this because she's furious about it.
Yes, that
But
is
yeah,
okay.
like the fact that most of us cannot participate in the election and most of us are not believing in it, it's kind of sad. But of course, all be like, I can speak of my behalf of my friends. All of them, they were forced by me to go and put their name in because this is what we have to do. We have to believe in a change. Yeah, go ahead, Salma. Speak about your experience.
The thing is that despite me being a Palestinian, I cannot be a part of this election because I'm considered an Israeli citizen. So whether I want to be a part of the election or not, I'm not allowed to. And here also we don't really have a lot of information about the election itself, because just like a week ago, I knew that Gaza is going to be a part of the election. I didn't know that the election was actually both for the West Bank and for Gaza altogether. I thought that was just a genuine election that will put the same the same system all over again, that it would be a manipulated election like it always is. But on another hand, we also here have an election here in Israel. I think this is the third time in 4 years, because the government keeps failing, and they always have to redo the elections because they have to make another government that everyone is agreeing on it. And also, me personally, I don't vote here because I'm not really okay with the fact that me being an Israeli citizen, because I don't want to take part of this election. And either way, it will not make any difference. Either way, I'm gonna still have this feeling that I'm not a real citizen in this country, and there's an actual law that says that I'm not an actual citizen, that I'm a type B kind of citizen. So why actually take a part of the election? What is the point if you do not consider me a real citizen, as a part of the elite group of the country, then why should I give my vote to any of you? And anyway, the war around here is between the right wing and the left wing, and the left wing is also all Israelis. So I don't see any point. So that's why I don't want to be a part of this election. But it's also at the same time with the Palestinian elections. So I'm torn between this election here that is going around here in the state that I live in, which I'm allowed to vote, and the election that I want to be a part of because I'm a Palestinian, but I'm not allowed to vote. So.
Yeah, I think we understand that. So when you talk about the left, though, Salma, would we recognise that as the left, do you think, in the Labour Party? Yeah, I think you know a little bit about British politics. I'm asking you this as well, Rawan. I'm just wondering, I mean, we have the news from your area, but it's never very informative. We really have to search for what is going on, the stuff that we are on the left of the party in Labour want to know about. So I'm just wondering if it's the same for you. You know, do you think we would recognise what you're calling the left in Palestine or Israel?
I don't think that you would around here, because the left parties here are still Israelis, are still against the right of return, are still they still have a vote when there's a war against Gaza, and they still vote improving for an approval of the war. But they are somehow friendly kind of Israelis that they are speaking of peace in a kind of stopping the settlements in Jerusalem maybe and the West Bank. They are only looking for a common ground between themselves and the authority in the West Bank. They consider Gaza as the enemy. They consider us also. They were a big part of the proving that the law that considers me a type B citizen, they voted for that. So I don't see what kind of left there is left in them.
Okay, I think I understand that. Rawan, did you want to speak?
Yeah, she basically like speaks about what I'm going to talk about. Yeah, I don't think you have the same ideas that we have here in Gaza about the left. Yeah, I don't think like, even though I'm sometimes, I think this is a general idea, not your fault or our fault, because sometimes when I read some articles about, not generally about Britain or England or anything, but I think it's about the details of the details, so sometimes it gets messed. So I don't think this is anyone's fault, but sometimes these ideas get mixed. Yeah, this is basically what I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
So what we're hearing here is that there's really not a lot to choose from. If you were to vote, as you've said yourself, Rawan, there's not a lot of choice. You would expect the same old thing to carry on, the same kind of systems. But what would happen if Hamas were voted out of power in Gaza?
To power in Gaza. Yeah, this is a really good question. Yeah. I think, yeah, okay. There's some general ideas that I heard here in Gaza. Some people believe that if Hamas rule here in Gaza, I think they would. I don't. The. I'm going to say what I think. This is not. This is not. Doesn't mean that I like. This is a general idea, but I think if Hamas ruling here in Gaza, I think she is going to lose. But if she did rule in the West Bank, she will win. Yeah, because like I don't like, even Fateh. I don't hear much about the, let's say, the politic side about Fateh, what how they deal with the people, their people. But because Gaza and the West Bank, it's like they are really aside. There is not much information that I know about the West Bank. I do not expect Selma to know much about what is going here in Gaza. Maybe she will go to internet and search about some information, but it's not that common to know that much because there is a lockdown. I don't think we are in touch that much. So this is my idea. I don't think we know much about different these parties here in Gaza, because the Hamas here in Gaza and Fatah here back then in the West Bank. So yeah, I would think that the internet make us good, because there is a lot of information that I didn't know before that I know now. So yeah, this is my idea, I think. What do you think, Salma?
What do I think? I'm not really familiar with how Hamas is really treating people in Gaza, but I am, let's say, really familiar with how Fatah is treating people from the West Bank. I know that if any demonstration were to take place in Ramallah or Nablus or anything against the government, they wouldn't hesitate into taking all the young people that taking part of the demonstration into jail. They wouldn't hesitate into opening investigations. They are pretty much, let's say, a part of the Israel regime, if I'm allowed to say something like that, because if you go to the West Bank, you can find military soldiers everywhere. The checkpoints, they are allowed to do whatever they want without any consideration of the Palestinian Authority, without being without holding any account to anybody. I mean, the West Bank is somehow under the rule of Israel, which is really obvious because of all the violation that the Palestinians who are living there are facing. I mean, just yesterday I saw a video as soldiers were like goofing around a school for like young children. I don't know if it's elementary, or I don't know. I don't know the details, but I just saw in the video that they were harassing kids getting out of school because they were bored or something. And this is the kind of power that the Israeli soldiers have in the West Bank. So I don't think that if Hamas took over the elections, or if Fatah won again, as it does every election that has ever been made, that anything would change, as long as after Oslo, that was in the 1993, and Israel was given the whole power over the West Bank. And I don't think anything that will ever change unless some of the parts of that contract can be actually changed, and then we can see some change in the West Bank. And right now there are settlers everywhere. They are allowed to carry guns, and if they don't even hesitate into shooting people because they don't get any question. If you remember the incident of Muhammad Abu Khader that was burned alive, and the man who did it, he was a settler that was roaming around the West Bank. What did he faced? I think a 3-year sentence into prison, in Israeli prison. So this is the whole point, that I don't think that it actually matters whether Hamas take the elections or Fatah win again, as long as there's this kind of power that Israel has over the West Bank. I think they will get away with everything that they do in the West Bank, as they do till this day, till this moment. So yeah, the elections.
Some people, like, they are out of side of Gaza, out of side of Palestine in general. They live in refugee camps. They do not have a Palestinian passport, even though they are considered as Palestinians. Some people, like in Jordan or Lebanon, they do not have a Lebanese passport or Jordan passport. So these people, like, some kind of stuck. They do not have the right of the Palestinians. Also, they do not have the right of the land they are living in. So although they are not participating in the election.
Thanks a lot for that. I can see it's a really emotive subject for you. Thank you, both of you, everyone, for coming. I want to thank especially our 2 young speakers. I thought they spoke very eloquently about what general conditions are like in both areas, very different areas, and about the political situation. Very eye-opening there. We have recorded this session, so I know there was an awful lot to take in. Okay, bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.